I talked recently about a processing breakthrough in just understanding my own psychology a lot better in terms of basically realizing I notice, or no, learning to notice the way I'm approaching decisions and interactions with people. And for me, this is a big leap forward in understanding my psychology through the lens of personality. And the old Myers Briggs way of doing this still holds up a little bit, but um, okay, so the Myers Briggs system says thinking or feeling. Everyone's thinking or feeling. You're a thinker or a feeler, and everyone knows that everyone thinks and everyone feels. So it feels like a somewhat antiquated or misleading um, way of separating people. It's like, but I talked in the last video about growth and fixed mindset, and it's really like, are you mindset on one? Which one are you more growth mindset on, at the expense of the other? Because the idea is, when you go to make a decision, you are going to prioritize. You can prioritize different approaches to that decision, and what's really difficult is to define what is thinking and what is feeling. Like there's a process there that you may or may not have noticed in yourself, but what is that process? It's You can call it thinking and feeling, but that doesn't mean you understand what it is or what the difference is. And I personally, after being in Myers-Briggs for the last 6 or 7 years, it's still really hard, but I'm learning from my own life experiences what that difference is and why it matters. So thinking and feeling. Um, Prioritizing thinking does seem to lead to more overthinking and like just actual thoughts and then everyone has unescapable thoughts sometimes, I think, but for me it's every single day there are words and thoughts and monologues and conversations in my brain, and that can be annoying, but it's not really the problem. But it's definitely a symptom of my psychology. So what I really learned from my breakthrough was, well, I'm still jumping ahead here. Let me get to what. Let me talk about what's my best definition of this difference: thinking and feeling. What does that mean? Everyone thinks, everyone feels. What does it mean to be growth mindset on thinking versus feeling? Um, the the simplest definition is to change it from thinking and feeling to reasons and priorities. There's other angles to this concept. There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but you could just call it reasons and priorities. I also think of it as focusing on the working. How does the thing work? How do I get it done? How do I do the thing? That's the thinking. And why does something matter? The mattering. Focusing on the mattering. The working and the mattering. Focusing on the mattering. Why does this matter? How much does it matter? Does it matter? Do I care? All these are connected. If I want to know if something matters, I at least somewhere in that is, do I care? Do other people care? Is it important? Or what is it going to mean to me? Meaning, mattering, caring, liking, disliking. It's feeling often gets limited to just, oh, it's what you like or dislike. It's like, but why do you like it or dislike it, and what does that build into? If you are prioritizing thinking, and even actually prioritizing itself, if you understand what you care about and what matters, this is what leads to being able to prioritize. Um, so for me, I've really been focusing on this difference between working and mattering. And for me, it seems I also am finding a lot of help to define this as, even in more simple terms, as the how and the why. And these are just basic words we use in many contexts, but the point of the personality system is to, any of a general personality system, is to really um, find some of the most repetitive patterns that in our thinking and our behavior. And I think these words do the same thing. These are very basic words of how and why. You can always ask. You can always ask how, and you can always ask why. And I watched the new Black Panther movie recently, and they say, and twice in the movie, they have this theme twice in the movie of someone asks the question how, and the other person responds, how is never as important as why. And I think that's so funny because I've been processing this recently that, asking the why question is a question of importance. Asking the how is asking how something gets done, how you do the thing. And so the thinking side, asking the how and focusing on the how and how to get things done, it's just a very, working mindset. It's like all about working and getting things done and figuring things out. How to make sense of things. So thinking is really about making sense of things and making sense of the workings. So there ends up being a lot of working and doing. What I've learned is, everyone is doing both of these. I'm acting on priorities. I'm acting on what matters to me. I'm making decisions about what matters and what is my priority in my life every day. And not just every day. Every 5 minutes, I would say. Every 5 seconds to every 5 minutes, I am making a decision about what makes sense for me and what matters to me. The difference in being a thinker versus a feeler is, as a thinker, I am putting a lot of attention on how I figure things out and how I do things. And I really want to make sure I do things well, because it's not, it takes practice to do anything well. It takes a lot of practice and attention to how do I load the dishwasher, how do I drive to work, how do I take care of my finances, how do I do my job at work, how do I get things done and perform in my job, in my relationships, how do I get these things done that I care about, and how do I do piano better, how do I do speaking and making videos better. I ask myself that a lot. I ask, how do I do things better? But I don't put that level of attention on, does it matter? Why am I doing this? And in failing to ask that question as often as I ask the question, how do I do it, I am effectively making an assumption about what matters, because I'm still acting on what matters, but I'm not criticizing and giving attention to what my priorities actually are in the flow of actual decision making. I am making a decision about what matters just as much as everybody else, but I am not working on that process. I'm not thinking about and working on how I care about things and how I prioritize what I'm doing in my life. And a big part of my breakthrough is really owning at a conscious level that a lot of the things I do probably don't matter. And it's not just the things I do, but it's the working and the doing and the figuring out and the thinking is happening in the actions that I take, all the things I actually do physically, but it's also taking place, this process is taking place in my brain, and I'm trying to work things out in my brain all the time, and oftentimes and a lot of times those are conflicts, a lot of times those are things that are hard to figure out. If I can figure something out, I figure it out quickly now because I know how things work, and that's what I'm focused on. If I can figure out how it works, I can finish that and move on. But if it's a conflict, or if it's a decision that is a question of what matters or what I care about, I'm trying to work out a conflict, and I'm trying to work out what other people care about or what I care about. I get really stuck on this process of figuring out how it works because that wasn't the question, and it's like, that wasn't the question, so it's hard to answer the question with the wrong process, the wrong mindset. It's also if I'm not critiquing, if I'm not questioning the mattering of a thought or an action, then I end up just I get it wrong sometimes. I don't do everything that comes my way, but I do a lot of things, and I'll do them if they feel good, and if I'm afraid they'll feel bad if I don't do the thing. But that's a very surface level way to approach mattering. Does it matter? Well, is it gonna feel good to do it, or is it gonna feel bad to not do it? Well, let me just do it then. And that's just it's skipping the process that I see a lot of other people engage in. And it's funny that what part of what motivates me is the fact that I could get more things done if I only did the things that really mattered to me. I could get more things done. Like, that's really still what's driving me. But it's, in addition to that, it is also about, like, I don't want to miss out on the things that do matter most to me. And if I don't really consider what matters to me most, then I end up working on things that I just end up spending time on things that don't matter to me, and I end up missing out and neglecting what does. And I learned how to do this. Excuse me. I learned how to do this a while ago for really, really big, important things like relationships, and, am I going to school, and for what, and why am I going to school? I had to work out why did school matter to me after I got there. And the breakthrough for me is that this is happening every 30 seconds. And I'm making this video now because it's now been a week or so since I had this breakthrough, and I'm noticing that for the first time in my life, I'm not overthinking all the time. I still hyperfixate and I still overthink, but I am not overthinking about everything all the time. And most notably is when something is stressing me out, I can de-escalate the stress by myself. It still helps a lot, and especially for more stressful things, it still helps a ton to talk out my emotions with other people, and that moves things along quicker. And for really big things, that helps offload a lot of energy and comforts me. But there are a lot of small things. There's a lot of small upsets or conflicts or question marks or stresses. And allowing myself to ask myself whether those things matter, and being able to answer to myself and say, I'm confident. This is not all of this is vocal, but this is the process that's happening. I can ask myself, does this thought matter? Does this stress matter to give my attention to? My attention is valuable in my own head. And I can ask, does it matter? And I can trust myself when I say, no, this doesn't matter. I can trust myself to make a decision about what matters to me, what matters to work on in my brain, what matters to work on outside my brain. And that's giving me a lot of peace. And I didn't think it would change this quickly. I didn't think it would change to an amount that I could notice after a week. But after a week of this, I'm having some of the most stress I've had at my job. And I am less stressed overall than I was without that stress. Because I can let go of it, because I don't have to. I can actually rely on myself to decide what matters. And it's like, this is crazy. Like, this is changing my whole life. Like, I can talk to my boss, and I can have these situations that would raise me up, raise my heart rate, and then it would stay up, or not necessarily my actual heart rate, but like heart rate would go up, my brain activity would go up, and it's like, man, like, I need to be around people as I need to make these adjustments because I'm getting stressed out so easily. And it's like, it's not as much of a problem. It's not a problem anymore, because I'm not losing all this energy to things that don't matter to me. And it's like, this is great. And that's pretty much all I wanted to share today. I keep intending to make these videos shorter. We're at 15 minutes now. 15 minutes seems to be my golden amount of time. My goal is still to get down to 5 minutes at some point, but I think that's it's going to be hard to pull off without multiple takes and scripting. And for now, I'm just going to turn on this camera and talk until I'm done. But I'm pretty happy about that too, and I feel like I'm building some momentum in multiple areas of my life right now, and I'm really thankful for that, and I'm really happy coming into the end of the year here.